push the button in terms of there's a light that comes on when you...
Yeah, so for logistics, there's a button right below you that will turn on your microphone and turn off your microphone. So,
Test. Okay, we call to order. And we appear to have a quorum, but we have a roll call. I'll read off the names to the best of my ability here, and we'll get started. Leslie Ang.
Here.
Niall Garrison. Here. Myself, Steve Gellman. David Sandino. Here. Darren Shansky. Here. And Rekha Patel.
Here.
I'm sorry, Rachel. Correct me, please. For this meeting, we need a temporary chair. I've been volunteered to do that. Need a motion to suggest that. If someone could suggest that I act as temporary chair.
Sure, motion to suggest that act as temporary chair.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. I will take this very seriously. Okay. We need to approve the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda as written.
Second.
Second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, introduction of fiscal commission members, city council members and staff. I think we spent a couple minutes to get background and
So it's up to you, commissioners, where you would like to start, but we wanted to make sure, since it is fairly new in terms of membership commission, it would be nice to do introductions of everybody's staff as well as yourself and the council member. So who would you like to start with?
David, you want to start?
So just a little background?
Just a little background.
Sure.
What
Yeah,
brought
so,
you here?
yeah, nice to meet everyone. My professional background is I'm a lawyer and a teacher by trade, and I've been a long time government servant for the Department of Water Resources, which operates the largest water utility in California, I dare say the United States. So I've worked a lot on rates, revenue bond financing, other financial structures for that water utility, among other things that I've done for the department. I'm basically the water law, environmental law attorney. And I'm a teacher too. I teach at UC Davis, and I'm the director for the small farmer clinic that's being started at the campus. So interested in working with you. I guess I should say I was on the Finance and Budget Commission, so I'm familiar with what had went on during that time period, and have served on some other commissions for the city, including the Planning Commission and Natural Resources Commission. So I'm looking forward to collaborative work with you.
Niall Garrison, portfolio manager at CalSTRS. You all hear me okay? Yeah. Niall Garrison, portfolio manager at CalSTRS, the Teachers Pension Fund in Sacramento. Primarily focused on driving emissions out of the portfolio. Been in investment management for a long time. Before that, I worked at Edison International down in Los Angeles in the public electric utility, mainly doing corporate finance and risk management. And I got connected to the commission through my colleague Rachel.
Steve Young. I've been on the Utilities Commission for almost 3 years. Served as the chairman for the last year and a half. Tried not to do it the second go, but was not successful. Have a lot of interest in that area, but also in understanding sort of what goes on in terms of fiscal policy, how decision making works, et cetera. Look forward.
My name is Reka. I was previously on the Finance and Budget Commission, not for as long as David Sandino here, but I worked at CalSTRS as an investment officer. Prior to that, I used to work for the state of Illinois, doing financial analysis and reviews of municipalities within the state, and also doing mini bond purchases for the state's portfolio there. And so I'm just, excited to be able to contribute in whatever way I can.
Hi, I'm Leslie Ang, first-time commissioner and excited to be here. I work as an attorney also with the Department of Tax and Fee Administration, doing sales tax, special use programs, and mostly cannabis tax. So, glad to be here.
Hi, I'm Darren Shansky, also first-time commissioner. I teach at the law school. My background is in state and local government, state and local tax, interested in good tax policy. I'm also very interested in the details of how, what cities can actually do under California's crazy system. I did work in public finance before coming to law school, and so I issued some muni bonds and things like that. So I'm interested in that as well. Thank you.
Great, well, thank you and welcome to all of you. I'm really excited to see you all here tonight, and your backgrounds sound phenomenal. This is great. I'm Donna Neville, Davis City Council. I was actually also a member of the former Finance and Budget Commission for about 4 years before I became elected to serve on the City Council. My background is also as a lawyer. I served for many years as the Chief Counsel to the California State Auditor, so where we worked on a lot of issues related to government accountability and public finance, so I have that background as well. I'm really looking forward to working with all of you, so welcome.
Okay, I'll start with the staff introductions. I'm Elena Adair, I'm the Finance Director for the city. I've been with the city since March 2020. A little tidbit of information, a day before we were told to work from home. So my start was a little interesting. But I've been with the city and looking forward to working with all of you. We had a little bit of a break from having a commission meeting, so we're relearning what we're doing, so bear with us a little bit as well. But if you have any questions for me, I will be your liaison. I will distribute all the information to you, and as we go through the packet and presentation today, I'll give you a little more information on that. I'll pass it on also to our other staff to do introductions.
Hello, I'm Lewis Clark-Waldrop. I'm the financial analyst for the city, predominantly working on the budget side of things. Been at the city for 18 months now, so it's still quite new-ish. But yeah, that's me.
All right, thanks. So Stan Richko, I'm the Public Works, Utilities, and Operations Director for the city. I was the one of the liaisons with the Utilities Commission previously. The department that I work with manages all of the utilities, so all 4 of the rates that are set for the enterprise fund, solid waste, stormwater, water, and wastewater are basically managed through my department. And that's kind of the primary pieces that come before this new commission. So myself or members of my team would be here talking about the various rate studies as we move through those. Steve's very well versed in the process we use there, but and basically anything out in the community, anything on the street, anything that the team does in the field is within my department except for parks. So if you have any challenges, I'd be the one to come.
And I'm the city clerk. My name is Zoe Mirabile. Some of you I met when we were doing interviews. So I'm in the city clerk's office, which is actually a division in the city manager's office. So lots of different layers there. And I've been with the city for 27 years now. And I can answer questions about policies and procedures, protocol, that sort of thing, commission structure, some of the city council policies. That's kind of why I'm here. I will not be a regular at this meeting, but you might see me for trainings and that sort of thing. Nice to see you all today.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment at this time? Nothing. We're not doing live.
No.
So public comment for this commission is who is in the audience, so who would want to speak live in person, and then your written public comments. This commission does not have a phone-in opportunity or anything remote like that. The remote is emails, and we do have a distribution list that has been set up that you are all a part of, that if you had any electronic mail of that sort, you would have a copy of it already. It's on our agenda that we do ask if people can submit it, their comments via email at least a couple hours before your meeting, so you can have a chance to read it before you come here and hear whatever the item is. But it's not a requirement, so people might be sending you things up until an item sometimes. You may want to, if it's something that is generating a lot of attention, a lot of comments, staff might have you kind of take a pause to make sure you didn't receive any last minute emails on an item. That won't happen very often, but basically public comment in person or email.
And we have neither. Then we have neither, correct?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We have no written.
You did not receive any for this meeting.
One question before we move to regular business. Is it possible for us to get a roster with names, email addresses, and whatnot for the commission?
Absolutely. You have in your orientation materials, you actually have all of the names of everyone, but the actual home address and email, is that what you're asking?
Maybe not home address, but that just facilitate the ability to communicate.
Okay.
Is that a problem?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So communicating outside of a public meeting with colleagues of yours that are here to hear a public item, we need to be very cautious not to have a serial meeting that's outside of the public space. So we can get a little bit into that if you want to talk about process and procedures a little later in the meeting. But we just caution you to be very, very careful. If you're assigned to a subcommittee or something that is doing work outside of the meeting here, it would be for a very different purpose. It would be only certain members, it would be less than a quorum. So we just want to be really cautious with communicating with your fellow commissioners outside of the public meeting here.
Okay. Thank you. Move on to regular items. First item. Talk about our purpose.
Good evening, everybody. Again, Elena Adair, Finance Director. So I will go through in your packet. You have received detailed information on the, what I'm going to call it, orientation. It had a couple of chapters in there. One of them was first is the kind of the purpose of the commission, how it was formed, members and things like that. So I will go briefly over it. There are a few things that I would like to pause on to kind of stress out, in particular for those that are new to the commission, just to kind of pay attention to and be cautious about in some cases. So you have been appointed by the City Council. I do want to remind everybody that this is an advisory commission to the council. So that means you are not per se making particular decisions. So you're advising the council and presenting it to them if need be, but that is the extent. So then City Council will take on and review what your advisory recommendations are. And they could decide to act on them or not to act on them. One of the things that we would like to make sure you take into consideration, if the council moves with a decision that perhaps different than the advice that the commission given, it is possible that the council members have the ability to choose which way they go. They take your comments into consideration, but generally, once they make that decision, we do ask that the commission follows what the will of the council is. So just to keep in mind some of those things. The other part is the commission should follow, as it states in your packet, some of the guiding principles that the council set. As you work through items, make sure you keep those guiding principle in mind, and I would like to just kind of read them off to you. There are 5 of them. 1 is to promote and embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion, prioritize environmental and social justice, make space for community engagement, balance environmental and fiscal sustainability, and strive for innovation and human progress. So just to keep those in mind as you go through your decisions and things like that. So the other part is to remember that council sets the goals and objectives, of which I will ask Donna, Ms. Neville, council member, to speak about. But keep in mind that as you go through your considerations, to keep those objectives in mind, because that's what we are following and that's what kind of the direction of the council is. There will be a few objectives that council put together. One of them relates to obviously financial and fiscal sustainability of the city. So this commission is tasked primarily with that responsibility. Again, Donna will go through a little more details on that with you. One of the things that before you got all here, you had some preliminary materials that you had to go through, conflict of interest, Brown Act, and CEQA and land use training. If you haven't done those, I strongly recommend that you do it. I believe it's actually required. But as part of that, what I'd like to stress out, and because it's kind of came up in the recent communications with the commissioners, when I send out information to you, I will likely be copying you as a blind copy. Part of the reason is so you do not reply all, okay? If you happen to see that it's just the entire commission is on the list, please do not reply to all, reply directly to me. So that's one of the things I would like to ask you about, so we don't have Brown Act violations as well. As I mentioned, so meetings are held first Monday of every month. Oh, sorry, not Mondays. It was Finance and Budget Commission. Sorry, in my mind. First Wednesday of every month at 6 o'clock, and it's going to be held here. So I know that came up a couple of times from a couple of you as to where it's going to be and how often and whatnot. When the commission was established or looked at again as the Fiscal Commission, in your handbook it does say that we meet either on monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly basis, or as needed. So if there is no items to discuss, we will not necessarily have a meeting. So just wanted to give you just an FYI on that. We do have an agenda prepared for every meeting, and in the current agenda you should be able to see that we have a couple of topics already identified for upcoming meetings. So that should give you some idea as to what some of the conversations are going to be about. One of the other items that often forgotten just because it doesn't happen often is Form 700, which is a conflict of interest code that has to be completed. So at first when you take an office, which I'm sure you have all done, but then annually on a regular basis on April 1 or by April 1, we request that you submit your Form 700 that goes to our city clerk's office. So sometimes we have to chase our commissioners to make sure that they actually do it. So if we do reach out, please remember to complete those forms, okay? Let's see. Overall, just want to give you an idea, since some of you are new and it sounds like you know, you worked in the state government or corporate finance setting. So we're a city. It's a city council is the governing body. They hire the city manager who serves at their pleasure and runs the city. So city manager hires all the department heads. So if you have any communications, I'm your liaison. Please run through me. But any time that there's other topics as Stan described, there will be other departments or department heads or their representatives coming over and doing presentations for you, or asking you to look at certain items, particularly as they are budget or fiscal type of items related. So you will not necessarily always see me present, you will see other people and on as needed basis to appear here. Let's see. Relationship between the commission and city council, as I mentioned, advisory in nature. That's one of the things that's kind of highlighted for you in the packet. The specific role of the commissions is to review and make recommendations to the city council on the matters within the scope of its responsibility. We did include a resolution that council passed that defines what the roles and responsibility of the fiscal commission is. I would strongly recommend you review it just to make sure that we are staying within the scope. Now, city council may choose to task you with specific items to look at, ideally, I assume it should be within fiscal type of realm. So, but they may give you some particular items to look at and make recommendations or advice to them on. One of the items that I want to bring up is that to make it easier, I think, on all of us, hopefully we now have enough people to make sure we have a quorum, and the quorum is 4. But I would like to ask you, in case you are unable to attend the meeting, please let me know. That will help me certainly to make sure that we do have a quorum for the commission, and it would be, if we don't, I want to make sure that the other commissioners are aware in case we have to cancel a meeting, if that's the case.
We allowed to attend virtually?
No. There's no virtual opportunity, and I can maybe ask Zoe to record the meetings, so you have an opportunity to watch it after the fact, usually a couple of days after. But there's no virtual opportunity to participate in the meeting. Anything else I need to add? Okay. As I mentioned, you have in your packet currently a roster of the commissioners in there. I do want to mention that we have an additional regular appointment that was made by council very recently. We have additional person, Mitchell Marubayashi, who will join us effective September. So we will have an additional person, and we'll have the full 7 members. However, we do still have an alternate appointment to make at some point in time later, and that still is available. Let's see, that I think is just a few structural and organizational information that I wanted to mention. In case you have questions, please go ahead and ask, but you will find a lot more information, more detailed information as part of your packet.
Any questions? Other comments? Let's move on to the goals and objectives.
Remember the microphone?
I'm sorry. That's going to take a long time.
It's a bit different, I understand.
Let's move on to the review of the goals and objectives.
Thank you. Elena, can you project the goals and objectives document up on the screen and move it to objective 1? That'd be great. So just so that you all know, earlier this year, City Council had a
if we can roll back just a minute. Sorry about that. So a little bit also in your packet you have, just to give you a little more background on the utilities from that perspective. So in your packet you have a lot of information around all 4 of the utilities, including links to what we call the utility 101s. So each of our utilities has a 101 basically page that's on the website, or a packet that's on the website. There's a link in here for that. A lot of information about each utility, a lot of information about what we do, who does it, you know, who the teams are comprised of, and then with the focus of this commission, how we go about setting rates, the process we look to follow, and then information about the current rates. So you have wastewater, water, stormwater, and solid waste, as I mentioned earlier. Yeah.
And that's, unless there are any questions around that, obviously, I think you'll see in the long range when we get to that item, one of the things we plan on doing is coming back and actually doing kind of a one-on-one about utility rate setting from Davis's perspective and how we walk through that process. So I think that's actually might be next month, I think it's proposed. So unless there are any questions, I think then we're okay.
Thank you. So earlier this spring, City Council did an off-site meeting, a lengthy strategic planning session. I think if I recall correctly, it was what I call a two-meal meeting where we met for about 8 or 9 hours straight and finished up around 9 at night. But it was really productive, and we went through and set out what our strategic goals are for the year. And what I'm going to focus on here are goals that are actually contained in the first objective, which deals primarily with fiscal resilience, which is one of our key goals. And just so you know, for reference, we only had 6 goals. We didn't want to have 100 goals. We were trying to be very thoughtful in the way we approached the strategic plan. So many of the things that you as a commission will end up assisting council with are going to kind of have their origin in this objective. So can you all see the screen, or do you have it? You have the document in your packet, and it's on your screens as well, so you can probably see it even better than I can here. So I'm going to run through them, and then where it's relevant, I'm going to touch a little bit on some really specific current work that will likely be coming your way soon. So the first strategy was to balance our revenues and expenditures, to pass a balanced budget for the fiscal years and maximize city resources. As some of you probably already know, a city by law has to have a balanced budget. We don't get to run a deficit like some private organizations do, and that's really important to us. So obviously we want to do that in a way that really maximizes the way we use city resources. We may ask for your assistance on that from time to time. Another one of our strategies was to review the current general fund reserve policy and, if necessary, update it to ensure consistency with council expectations and industry best practices. And as Elena will always remind you, there is a generally accepted best practice for how much of a reserve city should have in California that comes out of the Government Financial Officers Association, which is a recommended 15% reserve. Elena will tell you she wishes we could keep it at 20. That would be more to her liking. But in time, you may get asked some questions from council about that issue. Another big topic always for council and this commission is to figure out ways to meet our existing obligations and liabilities, particularly with respect to our pension, post-employment benefits, and mandated cost liabilities. And you'll be hearing a lot about that going forward. Another is reviewing the city's investment strategy and updating it if necessary to ensure that it preserves our assets and delivers reasonable cost rate of return. And I'm just going to touch on this very briefly here because by law, every city in California is required to have an investment policy. We do have one. And at a council meeting several months ago, there was considerable discussion about whether the social responsibility elements in our existing investment policy are really sort of as our community might like them to be. And we were asked to go back and take a look at that. So Councilmember Vitla, Vice Mayor Vitla, and I are on the council subcommittee that is looking at our existing investment policy and working to come up with some recommendations. It sounds like several of you on here are going to have all of you on here, and some of you in particular have some professional, work that you do in that area. So we will be definitely coming to you asking for your guidance on that policy once we have something together. We don't yet. We're still doing some preliminary research and working on that. Another is to continue utilizing the long-term general fund forecasting model so we can anticipate downturns and upturns. So we make good decisions. This is something you'll hear a lot about. I know David is very familiar with it. One of the things that really sets the city of Davis apart from many other cities is we do long-range forecasting using a model that has been developed for us. We do 20-year long-range forecasting for our finances, and it's been an incredibly helpful tool. And I know you'll learn a lot more about that and how we use it going forward. Second strategy is to take action to diversify the city's revenue base. We have realized for a very long time that we need to diversify our revenue and to come up with effective strategies for doing that. So there's a whole list. I'm not going to go through each of these in detail. I know you have the document in front of you. I'm just looking here to see what I'm going to mention though here under that strategy is something that I think has been probably one of the most exciting things that has happened in the city since I've been on council since last June, is that we have for the first time hired someone whose actual title is Economic Development Director. She joined us about 2 or 3 months ago, Katie Yancey, and I'm guessing she'll probably come here to this commission and give you a presentation fairly soon. She is fantastic and has a lot of really great ideas for how to diversify our revenue and really energize our local economy. So I'm really excited about the ways in which she's going to help us with those objectives, and I know the strategies, and I know that you'll play an important role there as well. Finally, we have, as a third part of our strategy, staffing and program budget targets for city departments. You may already know that we had some very significant staffing reductions during the recession of 08-09, and the city really hasn't ever fully recovered from those staffing cuts, despite the fact that we have just as much work, if not far more work, that we have to do with fewer staff. So one of the ongoing challenges we face as a city is not hiring, first of all, actually hiring and retaining good staff, because there are some fields where people, for whatever reason, are not getting degrees in certain fields anymore, or are not seeking jobs with cities. So that's been quite a challenge for us in terms of hiring and filling those positions, and we may look for your help there. And finally, the last part of the strategy is investing in city government infrastructure for long-term cost savings and capacity building. As no surprise to any of you, a lot of our infrastructure is aging, and we're often looking for ways that we can shore it up and figuring out the best ways to do that from a financial perspective. So I think that's, is there a 1.5 that I'm missing here? Is there a further one down? Is that? No, that's good. So that's all I'm going to touch on there. There's a lot there, as you can see, and you'll be getting some additional information and training on a lot of those areas. There's also another objective, Objective 6, that deals specifically with economic development itself. I'm not going to go through that tonight, but I would encourage you to take a look at that as well, because there may be ways in which your work and that work align. So I'm going to stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions or provide any more information that I can about our strategic plan or what City Council is trying to achieve. And I will just say one point is I'm really excited to be your liaison, especially having worked with this commission for as long as I did. And I want your work to be as impactful as it can be and to be really aligned with the council's goals. Which is why, whether you want me here or not, I'll be here at every meeting unless there's really some reason I cannot be here. Because I think it's so important for me to be a conduit here of information between the full council and your work. So I will be here, and my role is to support you and to make sure that as you're having discussions, I help to provide you with information to make your work align with what council is trying to achieve. So with that, I will stop.
Thank you. Questions? I have a question, and it may or may not be within the scope of what Donna just talked about. But there's, on the website, there's the Fiscal Commission is described, and there's a purpose and function statement there. And if we could pick at that just a little bit, if that's appropriate. I just want to make sure I understand it correctly and it's consistent with. Is that okay?
Yes.
So it's really a matter of scope. It says to advise council as you've described. The first bullet says provide accountability and transparency. My question is that we don't do this full time. We're not going through the books line by line by line. We certainly have a role in providing accountability and transparency, but I wonder if this implies, and maybe it doesn't, that we're doing more than we actually are doing. Is there some limitations on what the commission does?
I'm just going to take a stab at answering your question, because I know you, and that you're probably wanting to be sure that you're fulfilling your responsibility, and am I exercising the degree of diligence I should? You're an advisory commission to council. You are not an oversight body. If you were an oversight body, you would have a role to really play that would ensure, you would probably want to really look at all the records and oversee things. But also just to keep in mind, we have an independent external audit done every year where the auditors who follow all of the generally accepted government accounting standards go through things very thoroughly. That's not your role. Your role as a commission is advisory on certain fiscal matters. You're not expected to be the backstop for all things financial.
Thank you.
I just would like to maybe add to what Councilmember Neville mentioned is that one of the opportunities I think you do get to look at, and I think to fulfill this particular function, is when we take the budget or budgetary related items, mid-cycle, mid-year update, to likely to a commission first and then to council. So this is going to be your opportunity to review and see if what is proposed is in line with city council goals and objectives. Does it satisfy those? And so that would be your opportunity to make sure and maybe ask a little more questions than council would normally ask, or I'm going to say dig into a little more details and ask usually finance department who does those type of presentations and compiles the materials. So that is going to be more of your, accountability of the dollars spent, particularly general fund dollars, revenues, taxes are spent in accordance with those particular objectives and goals that council proposed.
Any other questions, comments? We move on to the next meeting. Talk about what the agenda might look like.
If I can really briefly, we would like this orientation material, the packet that we gave you, was already out of date 2 weeks later. So this is something that is a little bit of a living document. The things that will probably change more often might be when membership changes. It won't be things like your scope. But if you have, if you've taken a look at the packet that we provided you, there's a lot of those policies that are attached at the back. And so those policies are as they exist now, but once those are reviewed or updated. So we want to make sure that you use this as a reference tool, and then you have some other reference tools that we've given you, for instance, the commission handbook, which is a very detailed, and it's more about process and procedures and that kind of thing. And it's all commissions that it applies to. This packet of materials is to try and kind of present the universe to you, and there's actually quite a bit that's not in here yet, but we wanted to give you a flavor of what you can anticipate. And the 2 meetings or the 3 meetings there at the bottom that you're going to get into next, those are some of the things that that will get you ready for some of the other things that will be coming. So there's your universe is large. And so we want you to kind of understand that this is, we're kind of doing a lot of orientation at the beginning, and it may take a few meetings to get through all of these, kind of setting the baseline. Some of those things might be, very big plans, very big documents in themselves that you don't have to read every single page, but you have to at least know that these kind of set the framework for things, and then your piece of the pie might be looking at this particular policy, this particular program, this change that we're proposing, this particular thing. So we're going to try and give it to you in the order that we think would kind of build on these skills and this knowledge. But if you have need for more, make sure you vocalize that to us so we have the right staff at the meeting to answer the questions that you might need. Again, I'm going to be kind of the process and procedure person, so you're not going to see me very often, but I am always available to you. Give me a call, send me an email, and I can answer those questions. I think that's, I don't know if you've had a chance to take a look at our website. There's a whole bunch of information on our website, specifically in the finance realm, and even in the utility realm. But if you just want to kind of set up yourself for success, then we're going to try and give you the information in a logical manner. But anything that you have questions about, make sure that you jot those questions down or give us a call. called, and there might be other people that have those same questions. So the more that we can hear from you, it will help us to present the information to you.
I think in the Utility Commission, not that many months ago, we did a repeat of the 101 and found it very useful because you don't remember it all, because you don't need it every meeting, every time. And even folks that were very tenured, sort of, it allows to the creation of a framework that we're all talking from the same basis. We may not agree about things, but we're all talking from the same set of facts, and it's very, very helpful. So I appreciate it. Comments, questions about? Again, I've got on October 2nd, it's TBD, maybe meeting, maybe not. A lot can happen between now and then. Is there an analog to the Utility 101, a Fiscal 101 that we could put in that space?
Not to put words in Elena's mouth, but so with the Utility 101 we developed, I mean, certainly that can be used as a guide to maybe put some of the fiscal policies that Elena and her team work on, and that would be presented here. I think there's probably that would be a good framework, maybe to develop something that can be done here. I mean, in your packet you have a lot of the fiscal policies that I didn't touch on. I mean, I touched on one little piece of Elena's got a large world there as well. So I think we certainly could be doing that. October probably could be something we could potentially have that for.
You referenced the forecasting tool. Maybe that's something we could understand. Again, not looking at a specific issue, but understanding how that model works may help us in the future if that's appropriate.
So just to add to that too, Elena and I haven't even had a chance to talk, but I sent her a sketch this morning of what I thought that Fiscal 101 would look like. And so we need to chat and see how realistic that is in terms of just putting it together. Parts of it may be easier to put together than others, and whether that's feasible for the October meeting. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of different pieces. And I think, just from my perspective, I think it's really helpful if you're on this commission, if you start with a really broad overview where you actually understand all the revenue sources that cities in California have, and then you drill down into what our city looks like. It gives you a lot of useful context. And then there's all these other topics like forecasting and other things that kind of flow from that. So we'll talk, and I know Vice Mayor Faila also offered to work with me to kind of put together the materials. But we'll circle back with you as to what's feasible for October.
Great. And I don't think it has to be a finished product. We can learn together.
I also wanted to just add, in the materials that you have been already provided, particularly if you look at them electronically, there are specifically related to our enterprise funds or utility funds. There's lots of materials and links that will take you to some of those 101s on each type of enterprise that the city has. So I strongly would recommend, looking at that, and it will give you a flavor and information as well, where you can learn about various types of utilities and the programs that the city does.
I could add to that. I don't know if you're taking comments.
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so when I started last time on the Finance and Budget Commission, that presentation's out there. So I could send it to you. So now it's not available, but there's a PowerPoint presentation that has a fiscal overview. It leaves out rate setting, but it covers everything else. And my recollection was it took a couple hours and was helpful. So that'd be my suggestion if you can find that. And if not, I think I still have it. Yeah. It was before your time, Elena.
No, I was just going to add for the September meeting, the utility rate setting 101. I think that kind of might set the tone when we go through that. We've, as Steve mentioned, we've been through that a couple times with the Utilities Commission. So it's a pretty thorough review of our rate setting. It doesn't go into too many details. It's about the rate setting. It's not about the utilities themselves. So it's more of an overview. So I think that'll be a good start from a utilities perspective of getting that broad picture of how we go about looking at our rates and our expenditures and our revenue needs for those different utilities. So, and again, since it's already, Steve may sleep through it, but it's already kind of made, so we'll be prepared definitely for the September meeting. No problem with that one.
I learn something every time we work. Anything else?
I have a question, not a comment. I'm interested in the November 6th meeting and what's the thinking on setting up, it looks like agendizing the tax votes for the open space and for the sales tax. I'm just wondering what you had in mind for this, especially since it's after the election.
So for particular open space and park maintenance tax, there is a requirement in the municipal code that those are reviewed and make sure that they are spent in accordance with what the voters originally approved. So that's one of the items we're bringing. One, educating the commission on what the open space and park maintenance taxes are, what the spending, allowed spending is, and for you to be able to look at it in a way, almost in the preparation for our 2-year budget that's going to happen in the spring. That will give you an idea, kind of gives you a little bit of an education. So as we prepare for the budget and you will eventually review the budget or look into the budget, that it lines up with, what it should be spent on, that the revenue is coming in and being spent on the purposes that are stated and voters approved for. In terms of sales tax, this is more of an educational item in what sales tax is, what transaction and use tax is. It's not meant to be for a transactions and use tax that council put for the November election. That wasn't meant to be for that. We currently have a transaction and use tax for the city, which is a 1%. And so we are providing information on those taxes. So the regular Bradley Burns versus the transaction and use tax, usually a history of how much we've collected, how we spend it, so to give an idea to the commission on that.
Okay, I think I understand. So even if that sales tax measure doesn't pass, you still want to cover what you just talked about with the existing, okay. Okay, I wasn't sure whether there was a connection to the November ballot or not, so I'm not hearing there's not.
Anything else? I feel cheated here. This isn't a 2-meal meeting. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Thank you.
Very